Peace, y'all. Peace, peace, peace. Welcome back to the Robot Afro Show. My name is Chandler, and according to Wikipedia, I'm still your host. It's the end of the year, folks. We are back at that place where we are talking and reflecting about things in the past year, and how we felt and what we did, and yada, 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 how we progressed, and so on and so forth. So, for me, that reflection is more about, in terms of this podcast, something that during the year stuck out to me and that I feel compelled to, go back and pontificate on, if you will. So, excuse me, folks, but it is 4:21 in the morning, and I am up. I've taken a nap, and I know that I tend to do these podcasts pretty much exclusively in the wee hours of the morning for some reason. I don't know if it's because of my Sasquatch stomping, squeaking neighbor, or if it's just my, kind of late night, vibe where I just, ever since I was a kid, I just loved like staying up late. And, as soon as I started talking, I promise you on everything, my ghetto ass Africa devil hell level heater just came on. And I talk about this all the time. Like, I don't control my own heat. I live in, New York City. So it's like I live in an old apartment. My building was built in like 1955. So, you don't get to control the heat. It just comes up right in the middle of you talk. Heat just comes on. So if you hear it in the background, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let's work with it. Let's roll with it. So there's something that has been sticking in my craw. I want to talk about so many things. I want to talk about movies. I want to talk about comic books. I want to talk about my comic book projects. I want to talk about geek shit. I just saw Avatar 3 Fire and Ash, I think it's called. And, part of me wants to talk about that type of stuff. But there's another part of me that wants to discuss this issue about that took place. So there are two podcast shows. There's the Joe Budden show, where former rapper, Joe Budden, he has a podcast deal. So he has his little cast of characters rotating that, I don't know if it's a rotating cast or, some cast members are permanent. I don't watch it like that. So it doesn't really, I don't really think about it to that degree to where I'm studying who's on the show. I know Marc Lamont Hill's on the show. I know a guy named Queen's Flip is on the show who I have some familiarity with because of Sonetta TV, which is a YouTube channel, a guy from 125 back in the day. Anybody knows Sonetta? So, shout out Sonetta. So I wasn't too familiar with Joe Budden's show, but every now and then clips come up because of the N-word and hip hop and the nature of the things they talk about. That show doesn't really fall into my range of things that I listen to or podcasts that I tune into. A lot of times I listen to podcasts on my bike rides. I do during the summer in New York City. I tend to do maybe 35 to 40 mile bike rides once a week on the weekends. Funny thing, I think I saw Angela Rye out there one day. And if it was her, I'm not sure, but if it was her, she was actually pretty chill. She just looked at me, looked at her. Was no flirting involved, no nothing. She wasn't, I don't even know why I said that. but she just gave me a head nod and kept it moving. So I'm not sure if it was her. It looked like her. So if it was her, shout out to you. You know, sis, getting out there doing your biking thing. And if it wasn't, whoever it was, you have a doppelganger. So let me get to the meat. Let me center myself. Okay. I'm a little rusty, got a little ring rust. I haven't been doing these podcasts as frequently as before, because I'm just working on other things. I don't really have the same bite for it as I did prior, because a lot of the impetus for doing this had to do with my mom. My mom was battling cancer and a lot of different things, and it was, I used to like to share my podcast with her, and she was my inspiration for doing it. So anyway, it's 4:26 in the morning. I'm a little loopy. Excuse me, I'm burping on the mic. God. I'm trying to get my footing here, man. Stay with me, man. Stay with me. So let me be specific, because I have very limited notes here. I'm going straight off the dome for the most part, 99% off the dome. So I watched a clip that was, it was throughout the internetosphere, for lack of a better phrase. Jesus, man, these 427 podcasts, man, got me sounding loopy. I may or may not have smoked a little wanky tobacco, but anyway. So in this particular podcast, Marc Lamont Hill was having a heated discussion with someone named Queen's Flip, who I'm also kind of familiar with from Sonetta TV. Shout out Sonetta again. You can find Sonetta TV on YouTube, just in case. So, what I noticed, what stuck out, was Marc Lamont Hill got salty when Queen's Flip called him, said that what he was doing was sucker shit. Now, I don't remember this, because this was maybe a month or two ago, and I purposely let time lapse between then and now, because I was extremely irate at the time, and I was going to get on the mic and I was going to rip them a new hole. But I decided, chill. You really like these people. You don't want to portray them in the worst light. You want to give them a fair woodshed TED Talk, so to speak. So I decided to wait. And I just focused on other things. And so now at this end of the year podcast, I was about to start talking about movies and all of this stuff. And I said, no, I cannot let this go. I tweeted to them, to Native Land Podcast, about it. They never responded. I feel like I'm talking in circles. So anyway, back to the Joe Budden podcast, where Marc Lamont Hill and Queen's Flip were having an argument. Queen's Flip said that what Marc Lamont Hill was doing, whatever he was doing, was sucker shit. And for some reason, public intellectual, author, political commentator, bookstore owner, producer, and just well-regarded black intellectual Marc Lamont Hill went off the rails because Queen's Flip said what he was doing was sucker shit. So what caught my attention about it really was that the N-word was being bantied about. So you're okay, Marc Lamont Hill, Mr. Intellectual, Mr. Black Intellectual, Mr. Public Intellectual, Mr. Book Owner, Mr. Author, Mr. Lecturer, Mr. Smarty Pants. Smarty. You got upset because Queen's Flip, someone named Queen's Flip, said, sucker shit. What you was doing was sucker shit. Which is a really old phrase, but I'm from the Bronx. I'm 56 years old, just turned 56 on December 19th. Shout out me. He said you was doing sucker shit and you got upset. Okay, I understand that. I get that. People have their particular triggers and their, maybe an idiom or a word or a phrase or something that triggers you or makes you say, hey, don't call me that. I'm not that, whatever. So Marc Lamont Hill got upset. And my thing was, from what I remember from my recollection, was that the N-word was being bantied about. So you're okay with the N-word, but the word sucker teared you up? That really got you? So that's what initially got my attention. And the internet went crazy. Y'all went berserk. I mean, I saw message boards and posts and Reddits and YouTube videos of people, Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, everything. People were upset. This is elitism. Marc Lamont Hill is looking down his nose at Queen's Flip and saying he's anti-intellectual. And how dare he, call Marc Lamont Hill and say sucker shit and, how dare Marc Lamont Hill be offended, at the phrase sucker shit, right? Excuse me, sinuses, I got the heater going. So, but anyway, so my thing was, obviously, because my stance on the N-word, I'm like, but y'all are bantying around the N-word, but you're Marc Lamont Hill, but your Irie is reserved for the phrase sucker shit. Sucker shit. That's what really got Marc Lamont Hill. Sucker shit. Okay. That's what got you. But the N-word is okay with you, but sucker shit really gets you. Okay, I thought it was stupid, juvenile, anti-intellectual, just petty, silly, idiocy. Shit you would expect street corner dudes chugging 40s in the 90s to get upset about. Someone said, sucker shit. You got upset, he said, sucker shit. Okay. Okay, right. So let me get to my point. So within the sphere of commentating, blogs and, podcasts, the Native Land podcast, a political podcast starring, they just talk about, a lot of black stuff, a lot of politics, a lot of, they are, I would consider this to be a podcast of intellectuals, black intellectuals, right? Talking about things of the day that, concern black folk and the world at large. So I look for smart black intellectual shit. So I started following Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Bakari Sellers, and Andrew Gilliam on the Native Land podcast. Naturally, I knew Angela Rye from CNN, and I knew Tiffany Cross, from being a public figure. I was less aware of Andrew Gilliam and Bakari Sellers. Knew them mostly from short political stints or controversy and things like that. But I'm giving the podcast a chance. I'm listening to it. Like I said, I do these long bike rides during the summer, in the spring, fall. So I said, I'm going to give these guys a chance and check this out. So one day they have Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club on the show. So I'm like, okay, I know this is going to be silly. A lot of times I look at stuff just to see how long it takes them to say the N word or for the N word to pop up. So I decide that I'm going to listen on one of my rides or whatever. So I'm listening to, the podcast, and a lot of things are being said, and, Charlemagne the God comes on a little later. But this is a podcast. It's, the cost of thinking while black. Okay, the cost of thinking while black. Talks about anti-intellectualism in the black community and how, so on and so forth. But anyway, they get to talking about their interaction with the Joe Budden podcast and how they actually had podcast beef. So I thought that was a little interesting because I guess the spin was the Angela Rye's podcast, the Native Land podcast, criticized Queen's Flip and, the Joe Budden podcast, and there was some beef back and forth, and then Angela Rye and them decided that they wanted to clear the air, and they wanted to apologize and, set the record straight and basically say, look, we're not a bunch of black bouye. We're not a bunch of elites over here. We're not a bunch of, high sedity, just intellectuals over here thumbing our nose at the lowbrow pond scum at the rest of the internet, in the blackosphere. So, blackosphere. So, I'm into it all. I'm here for it. Excuse me. So here's the thing. I listened to the podcast. Charlemagne comes on the podcast late, and then he and Tiffany Cross have this like long exchange, and I'm like down by the World Trade Center, right? So I have just enough time. It's getting late. It's getting a little cool. So I'm on my bike ride. So I'm like heading home back to the Bronx. So I'm listening to this. And a couple of things stuck out. One, Angela Rye. I remember she said at one point, I'm an EP on this show. I'm an executive producer. I remember at one point, Tiffany Cross said something like, I'm curious about things. I can learn from anyone. And she went on a little bit of a, tirade about that. Tirade, I don't think that's the wrong word. But Bakari, I remember he said, we must learn to accept criticism. Without being defensive. I remember that specifically. And so, I'm thinking these are like open-minded black intellectuals that are going to be able to discuss things. And so let me narrow down let me pin it down. So at one point, Charlemagne, they were talking about just, the nature of, Angela Rye being very apologetic about how she prejudged the Joe Budden podcast and Queen's Flip, and she listened and it changed her mind and so on and so forth. And they were having this back and forth, and Charlemagne started saying stuff like, excuse me. Andrew, I think it was Andrew Gilliam, talked about his attorney friend saying that he listened to the Joe Budden podcast because he liked in shit. I like in shit, the word. So I don't feel like saying it. And he said it a couple of times. And then Charlemagne said something to the degree of, there's N-word shit on Native Land podcast. And then he said, all of y'all some N's. Huh? This is a podcast talking about the cost of thinking while black. This is a podcast talking about anti-intellectualism in the black community. Right? So this is what really pisses me off about stuff like this. And why? Because at first I had all these notes. I was going to do this whole big thing, and I promise you I have less than a index card in front of me right now, because a lot of it I let go. A lot of it I tweeted about. I didn't want to be angry about it. I don't want to tear apart black stuff, because especially black people who have degrees and high ranking positions of power in our society and have a big voice and a big platform and have the potential to do good. So I don't want to tear them down. I wanted to give them a chance to respond. So I addressed the issue with them on Twitter. Crickets. Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Bakari Sellers, Andrew Gilliam. I hate to say this. I hate this. You guys are cowards. You guys are politically cowardly. You guys are intellectual cowards. Okay. And so is Marc Lamont Hill, and so is Charlemagne, because I have gone at them all individually and tried to engage them. No black intellectual, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, no black intellectual will engage me. None of them will talk to me. I've broached the subject of the N-word with all of them. I mean, everyone from Killer Mike to Umar Johnson to KRS-One to Angela Rye to Marc Lamont Hill to Michael Eric Dyson to Jamel Hill to you name it. Okay, you name it, and I have tried to bring up the subject of the N-word with them. Anyone that comes in front of black people and is presented as an intellectual, a black intellectual, a political person, a commentator, excuse me, anything, and then I find them using the N-word. I've tried to discuss or broach the subject of the N-word with them. Crickets. They are not interested. Black so-called intellectuals are not interested in discussing the N-word. Why? In my opinion, it has a lot to do with the fact that they don't want to be called auntie and uncle by the younger generation. They want to keep their status. They like to be able to say, I hung out with Solange or Beyonce or this one, or, they want to keep up with the Joneses in that way. The social Joneses. But I digress. So, at one point, like I said in the podcast, Charlemagne says, all y'all some N-words. And this podcast full of people, Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Angela, I'm an EP on the show, Rye. Tiffany, I'm curious about things I can learn from anyone, Cross. Bakari, we must learn to accept criticism without being defensive, Sellers. Andrew, my friend said, I just like end shit. Gilliam, former mayor from Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. Okay, Bakari Sellers, former Congress member. Tiffany Cross, journalist, author, commentator. Angela Rye, commentator, political commentator, talking head. So none of these people, at one point in the conversation, they were actually talking about how many degrees were in the room. They were talking about the just being black and bougie, and should they have weighed in on the conversation that Charlemagne was having, that Queen's Flip and Marc Lamont Hill were having on the Joe Budden podcast, and all of these different things. And here, so now that you have some context for why I'm angry with Native Land Podcast, it's because you all sat there preaching basically from a standpoint of, you all are intellectuals. You're the smart ones. You are the smart ones. You are the ones. Forget about the Queen's Flip and the Joe Buddens and all of this stuff. Smart black people, y'all want smart black people to come and listen to you on your show. But a clown, a minstrel, Charlemagne to me he is adored by the mainstream media. Caucasians, they love him. We love Charlemagne. Charlemagne comes and he tells us like it is. He loves Charlemagne. Charlemagne is a clown to me. Any black man who, and I say black man loosely because none of these people are black. Black is an elevated state of consciousness. It is an awareness. It is a protection of your community and your culture. It is not running around calling your own people the N-word. Anyway, let me calm down. Let me calm down because I feel myself getting riled up, and I don't want to. I really don't want to. I want to be reflective here. I want to be open here. I don't want to condemn these people. I like Angela Rye. I came at this listening to her from politics. I like Tiffany Cross. I'm less familiar with Bakari and Andrew, but I'm here for them. In terms of, I showed up to listen to your podcast and you disappointed me because you all were having a conversation about being black intellectuals and you let Charlemagne call y'all a bunch of N-words. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you call yourself a black intellectual, sirs, madams? You are not. You are not black. Not maybe in the colloquial sense, you're black. In the loose interpretation of black, you're black. I'm black. She black. But in reality, you are not black. Black people do not call each other the N-word. Confused African Americans do. Black people from other cultures, from around the world, they may, but enlightened African Americans do not call each other the N-word. People who are caught up in the zeitgeist of ignorance and idiocy call each other the N-word. People who are brainwashed and confused call each other the N-word. People whose intellect starts and stops where Jay-Z tells them use the N-word. Intelligent black people do not use the N-word. They do not call each other the N-word. I cannot stress this enough. I called them out. I called these people out on Twitter. None of them responded. And I didn't want to think this, but I have heard things like, people that talking heads and, political people and, they don't want to fix anything in the black community. They just want to talk about it. You see, and this gives credence to non-black people calling them things like race hustlers, right? Because, let somebody in the hood get shot. Let somebody get attacked by the police and, let something big happen and they're all over it. They want to, and then, the police did this and the police did that. Black people and black culture is not just about people getting shot in the chest or beaten by the police or choked out by the police. It's also about how you use your platform to speak to black people and people like Killer Mike, okay? People like Marc Lamont Hill, people that are respected by the black community as intellectuals, as people who have something intelligent to say. My problem is you're not. You are the smart ones. So if you are running around calling black people the N-word, what chance do black youth have? What chance do black kids have? What chance do black people have? What chance does black power have? You're calling us the N-word. So I got to get called the N-word from white supremacists. I got to get called N-word from racists. I got to get called the N-word from now because of shit hop and slave hop, because it's not hip hop. This slave hop, I got to get called here the N-word all day. I live in the Bronx, man. I got to get here the N-word constantly. Constantly. I'm in Best Buy looking at TVs today. And it's three guys who are clearly Dominican. They were talking about, about being Dominican and something. And I was overhearing their conversation. And they were just in. And I'm walking home and a bunch of little kids, shut up, in. And I realized a long time ago that one of the biggest problems we have is black intellectuals, so-called. Because like Michael Eric Dyson, who famously went sitting next to Donna Brazile at some conference or whatever, went into some idiotic babbling spray about how being black and the N-word, and just sounded like a moron. He didn't sound like, one of the smartest black people in our community. He sounded like a moron. And I confronted him about it, and he ran. Michael Eric Dyson, to me, as another one who I listened to him, I was following him, and then I realized he's a fool. He's a fool. Any man who says that about the N-word, and spreads that among his people and never goes out of his way to fix or adjust that, fool. Intellectually foolish. And I don't mean to say these things in an ad hominem way, in such a way as to disparage his total career, or Marc Lamont Hill, or Angela Rye, or any of them. But as far as being a black intellectual, you are not. You aren't. And so anyway, I want to get back to Native Land Podcast. One of my pet peeves is to hear black people sitting around talking about how smart they are, and then they go around and then turn around and say the N-word and sound ridiculous. But see, here's the thing. Here's the catch. They don't sound ridiculous to a lot of the black community, because a lot of the black community has been brainwashed. We have been brainwashed into thinking that the N-word is normal. It is not. Let that sink in for 2026. The N-word is a racial slur. I don't give a frog's fat ass what Jay-Z said. Jay-Z does not speak for me. Jay-Z is not an intellectual. Jay-Z is not a black leader. Jay-Z is not he's not a politically astute person. Jay-Z speaks for drug dealers, drug dealer culture, hip hop, stupid shit. Okay? Dumb shit. Now, I separate. I shouldn't say hip hop. I should say slave. He speaks for slave hop, because hip hop doesn't use the N-word. True school hip hop doesn't use the N-word. So Jay-Z speaks to the dumb streets. He speaks to the lower minds in the black community. He doesn't speak for the rest of us. Jay-Z doesn't have to walk down the street and hear little kids calling each other the N-word. He doesn't have to be inundated and subjected to people of other ethnicities using the N-word, and neither the fuck does Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Bakari Sellers, and Andrew Gilliam. Marc Lamont Hill, on Joe Budden's podcast, using the N-word is dumb. I followed Marc Lamont Hill back when he was Bill O'Reilly's straight man. So that's how I became aware of him, watching Fox News, because I watched Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all of them, because you want to aggregate information across the airwaves. At least, that's... Anyway, so that's how I first became aware of him. And I followed him and to when he got fired for saying from the river to the sea at UN and blah, 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 blah. And, I started seeing him in different places and spaces. And at one point he was on Sonetta TV. And then on Sonetta TV, I heard him say the N-word. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, huh? Why is this smart guy saying the N-word? Excuse me, I got to take a drink. That's how my mama used to do when she drank. Anyway, sorry for the noises, guys. But anyway, so that's how I knew Marc Lamont Hill. And so then he, like I said, I heard him start using the N-word on Sonetta TV. Shout out Sonetta again for the third time on YouTube. So, and Patreon, wherever he's at. So I was like, Marc Lamont Hill is, he's dropping down to be able to have this quote unquote street level hood conversation, and blend in and seem like he's keeping it real dumb, Mark. Okay, keeping it real dumb. And if you're offended, by the way, Marc Lamont Hill, by the phrase dumb or ignorant, it's not directly at you. I approached him on Twitter twice. He ran from me. He blocked me. I've seen Marc Lamont Hill argue with anyone on Twitter. This guy will argue with anyone. He will argue with people about sports, he'll argue about the color of a shirt. He invited a guy on his show that personally insulted him, a Jewish guy, a radio show host, then brought him on the show and debated the guy. Marc Lamont Hill ran from me for calling him or saying what he was doing was ignorant. And Michael Eric Dyson did the same thing. These guys are frauds to me. I'm sorry. These guys are frauds. Okay? Marc Lamont Hill, I used to have a lot of respect for him. And then he just, I don't know. He got a lot of brother polite at him. He's on some bullshit. But anyway, I know I'm kind of my point is getting a little amorphous here. Because I'm going back and forth and talking about the Joe Budden podcast and talking about the Native Land podcast. And I think what my point is that I want to say is, you guys, your podcasts are really no different from me, because I don't have to listen to the Joe Budden podcast at all, right? I don't need to listen to them at all. If I never heard anything from them again, I would not lose out on anything. Nothing. It wouldn't matter at all in my life. The Native Land podcast, I could actually learn something from. I could be enlightened by. There's education to be received there. But I cannot do it. I cannot listen to you. I will not listen to you. I will not follow you. I sound like a Dr. Seuss book. But I won't, because I don't want to listen and sit in spaces and be a part of something where people can be called a bunch of N-words by a minstrel, by a radio minstrel. Charlemagne is a minstrel. He spends his career saying the N-word. That is a minstrel. You are white supremacy. Okay? I don't want to sit around and listen to a podcast, Native Land podcast. And when your podcast fails, when it goes off the air, when you guys are out of a job, and when you're back on the talking head circuit, remember this moment. The name is Gambit. Remember it. Sorry, X-Men 97, shout out. But remember this moment when I said to you, be bold. You should have been the ones to say, we're done with the N-word. We don't want to hear it, and we're not having it on our show. We don't want anybody to say it on our show. You should have been the ones to say that, because you are the smart ones. Why? Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you be the ones to say that? You know, why? because y'all don't want us to seem old. You don't want to seem out of touch. You don't want to be seen as auntie and uncle. So, I think it was Andrew Gilliam that said he talked to his attorney friend, and his attorney friend said, I listen to, Joe Budden because I like in shit, and, he repeated that twice. Andrew Gilliam, former mayor of Tallahassee, Florida. Now you're on Native Land Podcast. Bakari Sellers, right? We must learn to accept criticism without being defensive. Well, I'm criticizing you. And I criticized you, and you never responded. And I know that y'all saw what I put. I know that you saw my tweets. But just like all of the rest, just like Michael Eric Dyson, just like Marc Lamont Hill, just like the rest, y'all run. Y'all run. You won't respond because you don't want to damage your brand. What have I said here that was so egregious? What have I said that was so disparaging? What have I said that was such just a disrespectful ad hominem attack that you couldn't dare to retort to someone like me? But you're okay with Charlemagne saying y'all are a bunch of N-words, right? You're the smart ones, but you're a bunch of N-words. So is that how I should look at you? Is that how I should refer to you? Because you didn't have anything to say when Charlemagne said it to you. Mr. Monk's Corner said it to you. Mr. Breakfast Club said it to you. You didn't have anything to say about it then. Miss Angela, I'm an EP on the show. You're an executive producer on the show. You consider yourself to be a black intellectual. You're having a conversation about black intellectualism, about anti-intellectualism in the black community. And Charlemagne calls you the N-word and you don't even respond. You don't even have the intellectual fortitude to turn around and say the cultural fortitude, as I said to you on Twitter, to turn around and say, hey, we're not doing that here. Who is going to stick up for the black community? Who? Black youth running around the city can't stop saying the N-word. It's like a speech impediment. We say it so much, it's like a fucking speech impediment. How dare y'all consider yourselves to be the smart ones? You're the smart ones. You let a minstrel and a clown, and that is an ad hominem attack. Because Charlemagne, to me, is a minstrel. Caucasian America loves him, and we love Charlemagne. He tells us like it is. Some minstrel shit. Okay? Not an intellectual. You're not. Native Land Podcast is not a podcast full of intellectuals. How many degrees we got here in the room? That's the type of shit y'all was saying. Talking about how many degrees among you. It doesn't matter because to me, people like you know everything and nothing at the same time. It's like Marc Lamont Hill. This dude can speak 1,000 words a second, owns a bookstore, wrote a bunch of books. You know everything and you don't know shit at the same time. What are we doing? So look, I didn't want to do this, right? I asked you guys, I said, can we talk offline? You can set up like a neutral email or whatever. Talk offline. You know, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to bring you guys to the woodshed. And I still don't think I am. I'm not cussing you out. I'm just merely saying you're not who you think you are. And when your show is off the air because you had no balls, no cultural integrity, to be the ones to be different, to be different, to dare to be different, to break away from the herd of sheep, the pack of sheep, and just say, for once, can somebody black in power, with power, with a large audience, turn around and say the N-word will not be spoken here no more. And if it is, it will be called out, it will be reprimanded, it will be stopped, it will be bleeped, but we don't tolerate it here as a practice. How hard is that? How hard is that? How hard would that be to do? You know, I once said, imagine this. Someone like a Beyonce, who is basically the Black Madonna in terms of like Jesus, Mary, Moses. She's like the Black Madonna. She's like, she can do no wrong in the black community, right? This woman who idiotically said, free my ends in South Africa while talking to Africans in Africa, in South Africa, on a day where, and at an event where she was supposed to be honoring Nelson Mandela, the late great cultural icon, world icon, Nelson Mandela. She said, free my ends in South Africa to a bunch of Africans, which had to be the most tone-deaf, idiotic, culturally cauterizing foolishness I have ever heard. But black people love her. Black people love her. Black people will never support me. I never get supported by my own people. Not really. Rarely. Okay? Forget about somebody, a black intellectual, saying, hey, man, maybe this guy has a point. Maybe this guy that's been saying all this stuff about the N-word, maybe he has a little bit of a point. Maybe this is a conversation. Nope. I don't profess to be who you guys are. I don't consider myself to be a black intellectual in that way. Not like that. Not to the degree that you guys are lauded as. I don't consider myself to be a political commentator or interlocutor or pontificator. I don't consider myself to be that to the degree that you guys are. But you guys are lauded by our community. They love you. You know, which is probably why you don't want to stop saying the N-word, or why you won't say anything, or why you are afraid to push back against a Charlemagne. So are you an N-word? Is your baby an N-word? Is your mama an N-word? Let me explain something to you. The only reason there is no difference between N-I-G-G-E-R and N-I-G-G-A. The only difference is a southern drawl, is people saying, and just excuse me to the ancestors, because I really don't feel like uttering this, but I'm going to do it anyway. But it's nigger, okay, and nigga, okay? Nigga comes from the south, the southerners, they say nigga, okay, nigga. So you think that because Jay-Z said, we're not niggers, we are niggas, yeah. So the whole civil rights movement was just, that was just stupid. They were just wasting their time. They should have just said, you know something? We're not niggers. We're niggas. Yeah. Are you kidding me? What are we doing here? What are we doing as a community? We should be understanding and discussing the fact that the N-word is the most spoken word in our community. It's the most prolific word. It is the most pushed word on our community, in our community. It is what gets the most algorithmic clicks, and it pushes the needle in our community. It's what comedians use. We can't get away from the N-word in our community. Why? Why is it that other communities, the slurs for Asians, for Latinos, for the LGBTQ community, for Latinos, for mental health, all of them, they are protected from their slurs while we are exposed. We are left exposed while others are protected. Why? Because people like Native Land Podcast and Joe Budden's podcast and all of these fools and fakers and slave hoppers pushing this shit on our community like paid spokesmen for white supremacy. That goes for you, miss. I'm an EP on the show, Angela Rye. That goes for you, miss. I'm curious about things and I can learn from anyone. Tiffany Cross, author, commentator, journalist. That goes for you, attorney Bakari. We must learn to accept criticism without being defensive. Sellers, former Congress member. That goes for you, Mr. Mayor, Andrew Gilliam. This goes for you, Michael, 55 books, Eric Dyson. This goes for you, Marc. I'm a track star. I'll debate anyone but you, Lamont Hill. This goes for all of you. In the immortal words of Chadwick Boseman in the Black Panther, you all wrong. You're all wrong. And I'm here for it. I'm here to debate any one of you. Amanda Seales, another one. Oh my God, this woman is so delusional. She gets any chance she gets, she runs around to tell anybody, I'm an intellectual, I'm an intellectual, I'm an artsy intellectual, I'm an intellectual, I'm so smart. I went to Columbia and I know this and I know that. Can't stop saying the N-word. She sounds like a fool. You are like a race car driver running around with patches all over yourself with sponsorships, except all yours say the N-word. You're a fool. And that is an ad hominem attack. 3 years ago, I think it was, I addressed her and have been trying to get her to respond to this ever since she ran from me. You're a track star. Marc Lamont Hill is a track star. Ran from me. Marc Lamont Hill will debate anybody that, Marc Lamont Hill loves Palestine, boy. He has so much respect for them. He has so much respect for Palestinians, which is cool. We all do, right? We're all thinking people, intellectuals, people with consciousness and heart. We're all on the side of the Palestinians, as well as people in Sudan and the people in Congo and the people in Haiti, right? People in Venezuela. We're with you. You know what? I'm going to calm down. Take another drink. Calm down. Excuse me. The Cost of Thinking While Black. That was the name of their podcast for the Native Land Podcast. I want to end this by saying this. I want to watch you. I want you to do better. I don't have anything personally against any of the people that I discussed. I want the Native Land Podcast to survive. I want there to be a place for black intellectuals. I want black intellectualism to thrive. Not at the cost of black culture, though. We are not N-words. And you spreading it around makes you a tool of white supremacy. I challenge you, all of you, Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Bakari Sellers, Andrew Gilliam, Marc Lamont Hill, Michael Eric Dyson, Jamel Hill, Amanda Seales, Killer Mike, KRS-One, any of you. I will discuss or debate this issue with any of you. I challenge you. Any of the people on Joe Budden's podcast, any of them. I will intellectually eviscerate you. I would rather it be a conversation, right? But here we are. Here we are. Anyway, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm getting a new TV in the morning. That's right. I got a 75-inch TV coming in the morning. Funny story. Let me tell y'all a funny story. Some real funny shit that happened to me over the holidays. I know this is a weird pivot, but I don't want to end this podcast angry. And it's the end of the year. It's December 31st. It's New Year's Eve. And I just want to end on, just a little bit of lightheartedness. So like I said, any of the people that I talked about, I respect these people in a lot of ways. And I followed these people, which is why I'm so fucking angry at them. Because I look for black intellectuals and I can't find it. Okay? Anyway, so I'm with my partner, my girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. Right? So we're watching a movie in my living room. This is over the Christmas holiday. And so I'm chilling. I got my whole mojo going. We got the trees going. We got the drinks going. We got the popcorn, feet up, ambiance. My TV was like, had a stroke right on the spot and died. Now, I knew for some time that my TV was dying. I had a big-ass screen TV, but I had it for like over a decade. So this TV just died right on the spot. I would have been embarrassed, except that me and this woman have known each other for like 18 years or something. I don't know if it's 18 years, but it's a long time. And so we just laughed. We laughed, and then went in my bedroom and watched the TV in my bedroom. And but so I got a TV coming tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. Finally replacing that TV, but it was just so funny that my TV died right there while I'm sitting watching the movie. I was watching Wrath of Man with Jason Statham. Which is actually really one of his best movies. Really good movie. So I had my birthday just passed on the 19th. I went to the Palm restaurant in Times Square and had the best meal I'd had in years. I had a 5-pound lobster. I wish I could remember my waiter's name. I'll mention him in another podcast. He was excellent. Excellent. I mean, from the minute I walked in the door, there was a black guy at the front desk, and he was just awesome. As I walked through the place, the staff was all nice, but my waiter was top notch, and the food was excellent. My lobster, best lobster I ever had in my life, best service I ever had in my life at a restaurant. I think it's the Palm or the Palms. I'm not sure. I think it's the Palm restaurant. I'm not sure. But you guys will know it because it's famous and it's in Times Square. It's expensive, but if you want a good meal, if you want to have a great time, go there. And then I went and saw Avatar with my lady, and it was just, I wanted to have a classic dinner and a movie date on my birthday because I hadn't been to the movies. I hadn't done a dinner and movie date in 3 years because I had been single. So I hadn't done it. And I was just focusing on writing my book and some other things, my other projects. So I decided to be, just to wait. And I said, I'm going to wait. I said I wanted to date a black woman and no other. And I waited. And I waited for my queen, and I found her. So anyway, shout out to you guys. This is the end of the year. We're reflecting. And like I said, I want to address Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Bakari Sellers, Andrew Gilliam, and even Amanda Seals and Marc Lamont Hill and Michael Eric Dyson and Jamel Hill and anyone that I addressed on this podcast. I do not hate you. I do not even dislike you. I started talking about you because I was following you as a fan. And then you disappointed me by just basically saying you're an N-word. My wish, my dream, my hope in the new year is for us to move past this as a community and for people to start to take a stand. I'm waiting for one of you to be like, the N-word will not be said on this show. It will not be spoken on this show or in this space. And until you do that, you are not an intellectual. I repeat, until you do that, you are not who you think you are. I challenge you. I challenge all of you, any of you, to have a conversation with me about this. Let's talk about it. I don't have any desire to be famous. I don't have any desire to be in front of the camera. None. I'd rather have this. This is why my podcast is just audio. I had a face for radio. Okay? I don't want to come in front of the camera. I'd rather talk off air. I'd rather talk in an email. I'd rather talk to you in private over lunch. I don't want to sit here and chastise you, but you deserve it because you think there's nothing wrong with the N-word. And I'm telling you, everything is wrong with the N-word. They are protected from their slurs. We are exposed. And you are helping to pollinate and push that word on your own people. And you think there's nothing wrong with you. You think it's innocuous. You think it's benign. And I'm telling you, it is cancerous. It is infectious. And it is tearing us apart. It is tearing apart the very fabric of our culture. And the fact that you don't see it and that you push it because you use cognitive dissonance to as the wind in your sail to move you along through the podcastosphere and through, just the talk show circuit. And as long as you get your money and as long as everyone is cool with you, it's okay. Here's a funny thing. I mentioned Beyonce earlier, and part of the reason why I mentioned her was because she's so big, right? There are a million words in the English language, but in her album, that stupid album where she sat on that fucking glass horse and all black people went crazy over that shit like it was actually something, she said the N-word like 4 times on that album. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a million words in the English language. You couldn't have thought of anything better to say to your people than that? You couldn't have thought of anything better to push around the world than that? You couldn't have thought of anything better for your legacy than that? What if Beyonce just said, in a song, just said, I'm done with the N-word, as a simple line? Do you know thousands of people would stop using it? So think about this. Think times that by every other artist. Times that. How dope would our community be? What would our community be if we got that word out of our mouths and started to treat that word like cigarette smoke? Like, ew. Like, we don't do that anymore. What would that do for us? Who knows? But I'm willing to discuss it, and I want to discuss it. But I'm done discussing it. Happy New Year, my people. I love you. I love you all. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting the Robot Afro Show. Thank you for supporting Robot Afro Press, which is where a lot of my geek stuff goes. I'm trying to do some comic book stuff and just bring my characters to life. My character Dazzle, check her out, #Dazzle. She is an African metanatural character who I put into a silent AI concept comic book. So a couple of issues, check it out. I have some more things going. But anyway, I love y'all. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for rocking out with your boy. And I promise you I will try to do more positive and just different podcasts in the future. I don't want to harp on stuff like this, but it's necessary. I hate this. I hate it. But it is necessary. I'm a geek. I want to talk about geek shit. I want to talk about Superman and X-Men and Avengers and Doomsday and all of this stuff. But I can't. Because I got to talk about this. Anyway. Love y'all. Until the next time. Do you understand? Or no? Thank y'all. Love you. Peace.